Throughout Chile's history, democracy has been introduced, taken away, and reinstated in a roller coaster of governmental change. Many, if not all, of these shifts were catalyzed by the participation of the public. After seeing the success of these participating citizens' previous efforts to create change, the students of Chile realized that their voices held the same power and were also capable of creating change. This was the beginning of the student protests in Chile.
These student protests have been going on for 12 years since 2006, but can be broken up into 3 distinct revolutionary periods. The 2006 Penguin Revolution, where they fought for free public transportation and university entrance exams. The 2011 protest, where they fought for free education and higher quality schools. And the current 2018 protests, where the fight for free education is continued, but with an added focus on condemning sexual abuse. All of these protests have continued to evolve according to new social demands and will continue as society and democracy change.
All right. Hi, everybody. We are all here today because we have the same belief that our school is not doing enough for us and things need to change. This school has ridiculously high expectations for how much money we have. They think we're not only going to pay for our subpar education, but we're also going to pay ridiculously high prices for the metro passes and bus passes it takes to get here, and all the college exams we need to take to get into universities that are expensive as well. This is not okay, and we know that it needs to change. Who's in? Woo! But these issues aren't going to solve themselves. We're going to get everyone we know, and we are going to protest.
Yeah! But how?
Well, I mean, that's really up to you guys and us as a group. Do you guys have any ideas?
Let's make posters and take them to the streets.
All right. Anything else?
I think we should just leave and not come back.
Okay.
I'm gonna set the school on fire.
All right. Maybe not set the school on fire, but I'm digging the posters in the streets. I think it's a really good idea. Who else is in? Yeah! All right, then it's settled. We're going to take our demands. We're going to tell them exactly what we want. We're going to get everyone we know, and we're not going to stop protesting until we get what we deserve. Yeah!
Okay.
What you just saw was an incredibly accurate reenactment of one of the first student protest meetings from the 2006 protests. This revolution was also known as the Penguin Revolution because it was fought mainly by high schoolers whose black and white uniforms resembled penguins. Their demands were free bus passes, free PSU tests, which was the test they needed to take to get accepted into college, the termination of the Ley Orgánica Constitucional de Enseñanza, or LOCE, which was an illegitimate law that affected graduation requirements, the end to municipalization of subsidized education, and reform of the full-time school day policy. These protests began on April 24, 2006, and continued for months. The students would organize marches, walkouts, and tomas of their schools. Their protests gained popularity and got larger as time went on, gaining the support of private school students, the Teachers' National Union, and the general public. At its peak, the revolution had 76% public support. On May 31st, President Bachelet finally gave the students an offer that they almost immediately turned down. Once they turned it down, however, their public support dropped significantly. The students organized one more strike on June 5th, fighting to get all of their demands met. On June 9th, the students accepted Bachelet's offer and ended the protests. Not all of the students' demands were met, but they ended up with a reorganizing of the Ministry of Education, an establishment of an Assistant Presidential Council on Education to propose methods to improve the quality of their education, a reform of LOCE, free lunches for 500,000 new students, infrastructural improvements in the schools, free bus passes for the most needy students, and free PSU tests for 80% of the applicants. This left the students content but not completely satisfied, which led into the 2011 protests.
Hey, class.
Hello.
Hi. Well, I hope you all enjoyed your recess on our new playground equipment.
Yes,
Good. Okay. Well, before we get started on our derivatives, we need to have a snack to fuel our brains. Yeah. Hi, class.
Give me the knife! Give me the knife!
This is my only
Settle
knife!
down. Settle down. Are you having that?
You want this?
I wanted the knife.
You want this right now? Are you serious?
Okay, let's just review the alphabet.
I hate letters.
Wait, the alphabet?
I hate the alphabet.
I literally hate
that?
math every day.
Shut up.
Go back to where you come from.
I am angry.
This skit is an example of one of the problems that led to the 2011 protests. It shows the stark contrast between rich municipalities and poor municipalities. A student would be subjected to whatever quality education their community provided. The municipalities are in charge of the upkeep of their communities. However, if that community is stuck in a cycle of poverty with their municipality, it is difficult to make necessary improvements for the community. The 2011 protests were carried out by the same generation who led the Penguin Revolution in 2006. These protests were triggered by the government increasing funding for nonprofit universities, but these universities were using unethical methods to profit from students any way they could. Students demanded that everyone should have access to the same quality education, whether you are rich or poor. This meant taking the funding of schools out of the municipality's hands and into the hands of the government, who could then fund each school equally. Along with this, students asked for more grants and subsidized loans to help pay for their education, but their main goal was to achieve free education. Resulting from these protests, which mainly consisted of large marches and flash mobs, President Piñera announced that there would be more funding for public education. However, he made for-profit university activities legal, which was the opposite of what the students wanted. Several more proposals were made, but none were accepted by the students. Reforms have been carried out, but none have satisfied all of the students' demands.
With the changing of society, the protests of the students have evolved to fight against new problems. They are still fighting for free education, but they now face problems with sexual harassment and assault in their classrooms. This protest has feminist undertones because the majority of the sexual harassment victims are women. These women are demanding justice for the wrongs that have been done to them, and they want the universities to create policies that protect them and bring justice against the perpetrator. Who knows if this will be the last student revolution or if the continued democratic development will spur new issues.
Through this research, we can see that these protests have a pattern of reoccurring every 5 to 7 years. Each one builds off the last one, while adding new issues that need to be overcome. In general, the outcomes of these protests include more scholarships or grants for students, nicer schools, free entrance exams and transportation, increase in school funding from taxes, student participation in university governance, and a new position in the Ministry of Education for addressing these issues. The students didn't completely get what they wanted, but some of their requests were answered. Overall, the education system has gotten better. Regarding democracy, these movements have increased the role of the student's voice in university and school-related problems. These movements have changed how students are seen by the government and population and opened the eyes of the public to many of the internal problems within their own education system. The 2006 and 2011 movements have helped build a more democratic school system for Chile. It is too soon to tell if the 2018 movement will do the same, since it is still going on, but it also seems to be heading in that direction. In any case, these students have made it clear that they will stop at nothing to get the education they deserve for themselves and for future generations.